Pray based on individual belief. Begin. Enough. And then the next agenda will be the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya, and the March UMK. That was our national anthem and March UMK. Before we move to our agenda, I'd like to invite all of you participants here for I'm sorry. Before we move to our next agenda, I'd like to invite all of you participants here for a quick photo session for documentation. Please make sure you are ready, the camera is open, and use the virtual background. All right, we will start from the first slide. Are you ready? First slide. 1, 2, 3. Next slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Next slide. 1, 2, 3. All right. Next. 1, 2.
Recording
3.
in progress.
Okay, thank you. The next agenda, welcoming speech from the Dean Psychology Faculty Universitas Muria, Mam Iranita Hervi Mahardayani, M.Si Psikolog. To Mam Iranita Hervi Mahardayani, M.Si Psikolog, the time is yours.
Thank you. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, best wishes for all of us. Thank you to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Today is given the opportunity to meet in the virtual room with a pleasure and the spirit of learning. And this very special moment, we meet in the International Conference on Educational Psychology and Behavioral Studies. The Honorable Professor Dr. Insinyur Darsono, President of Muria Kudus University, the Honorable Professor Dr. Muhadjir Effendy M.A.P, Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Culture Indonesia, in this matter represented by the specialist staff of the Coordinating Minister, Professor Dr. Rafiq Karsidi, M.S, at the same time as a keynote speaker. The Honorable, the speaker from Thaksin University, Hiroshima University, Our Lady University, Our Lady Fatima University, NEUST Filipina, and also Muria Kudus University. And to all participants, thank you for your active participation in this international conference. This conference took a theme inclusive education for student well-being. We know that inclusive education provides equal opportunities for every child to get an education, regardless of the child condition. Inclusive education during a classroom teaching must strive for non-discriminatory attitude, recognition for all parties to all students, providing facilities and safe environment for each individual child. That's what we will learn and discover completely today. Okay, I hope this webinar has given us knowledge and insight that we can apply to the community. And I also hope this event will be successful until the end. And finally, I would like to finish this opening with a wonderful quote from Oscar Wilde, a poet from Irlandia. He said that the best way to make children good is to make them happy. Thank you for your attention. Salam Psikologi Bravo. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ma'am Iranita Hervi Mahardayani, for welcoming speech in this morning. And the next agenda, opening speech from the President of Universitas Muria Kudus, Professor Dr. Darsono, M.Si, to Professor Dr. Darsono, M.Si. The time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
my Honorable Minister, Professor Dr. Muhadjir Effendy, M.A.P, Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Indonesia Culture, Professor Dr. Norimune, Kawai from Hiroshima University, Japan, Chakadee Waiyavutti, Ph.D. from Thaksin University, Thailand, Alicia Tablizo, Ph.D. from Our Ladies of Fatima University, Philippines, Anabelle Zoe Lazaro, RN, LPT from NEUST, Philippines, and Dr. Trubus S.Psi, M.Si from Universitas Muria, Indonesia, and all participants of the International Conference of Educational Psychology and Behavioral Studies. All gratitude goes to all lecturers and committees for holding these international webinars, and it is an honor for the Universitas Muria as an effort to develop science, research, and especially insights into inclusive children's education. Universitas Muria from year to year shows an increase in several achievements, including in the fields of student affairs. It has received the best award from the third national cluster group in the student creativity program, means PKM. Cluster 1 under the management of the National Student Organization, the first rank of PKM and Central Java Province, first rank in Central Java in community services activity for UMK lecturers, ranked as a fifth best university in Central Java based on W2 metric. It is in the top 10 best private university in Central Java based on Uniranking Australia. ID Scientific Index ranking number 327 nationally from a survey of 5,000 universities and many other academic and non-academic achievements. Ladies and gentlemen, the Faculty of Psychology is one of the faculty that prepare human resources in the fields of education, which teaches educational theories and practice to students to equip students to face the worlds of work. Students' ability continue to be developed to hone skill through fieldwork practice of intensive as well as college assessment that leads to hard skill. So it is good that one of them can become an excellent resource of worlds of education and the worlds of work in general. Ladies and gentlemen, in the fields of education, individual differences are often found in learning activity. The condition in which a student cannot learn properly is called learning difficulties. Individual differences are avoidable in life. This difference can be in the form the difference that originates from the development of physical, psychological, talent, natural, and cultural environment that affect their knowledge and experience. That the disorder that causes a person to experience learning difficulties can be in the form of a psychological syndrome, which can be in the form of a learning disability. Symptoms that appear is indicator of psychological abnormalities that cause learning difficulty for children. Learning difficulties are deficiencies that do not appear outwardly. Disabilities in learning cannot be recognized in different physical form from people who do not experience learning difficulties. This learning difficulty is not always caused by low intelligence factor, mental disorders, but can also be caused by older cognitive ability such as reading difficulties, numerical and children which estimates that at least it is 4.2 million Indonesian children with special needs, which differ from pada student who has physical, emotional, mental, and social disorder or has the potential for intelligent and or special talent has the risk to attain inclusive education and sustain educational unit.
Recording stop. Recording in progress.
Minister for Human Development and Culture Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Rafiq Karsidi, M.S. For Profesor Dr. Rafiq Karsidi, the time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, dan salam kebajikan. The Honorable Pak Rektor Universitas Muria Kudus, Profesor Darsono, and also all the speakers, Profesor Norimune Kawai from Hiroshima University of Japan, Dr. Chakadee Waiyavutti from Thaksin University, Thailand, Dr. Anabelle Joy Larasu from NEUST, Philippines, Dr. Alicia Tablizo, Ph.D. from Fatima, University, Philippines, and Dr. Trubus from University Muria Kudus, para wakil rektor, dekan, dosen, para mahasiswa, dan seluruh sivitas akademika Universitas Muria Kudus, serta seluruh peserta dan para hadirin yang berbahagia. Ladies and gentlemen, para pembicara dan para peserta yang saya banggakan, all speakers and participants, especially from abroad, I would like to apologize from the minister for not attending this event in person. The minister expressed his appreciation and gratitude to all speakers from abroad who had been pleased to convey their suggestion, and allow me, the staff of the minister, to deliver this speech in bahasa. Mohon maaf, saya akan sampaikan dalam presentasi bahasa Indonesia yang sudah disiapkan Menko, yaitu tentang pembangunan yang diminta oleh kita panjatkan puji syukur kepada Allah Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa karena rahmat dan karunia International Conference on Educational Psychology and Behavioral Studies. Pada hari ini, alhamdulillah pesertanya banyak. Para hadirin yang saya
Recording in progress.
Ini saya menyampaikan hal-hal yang terkait dengan pembangunan sumber daya manusia yang unggul.
Recording in progress.
Bisa posisi 10 besar dunia, cita-cita kita bersama 2045 berada pada urutan 5 sampai 7 di tingkat dunia. Untuk mencapai itu yang saya revolusi info ternyata berpotensi mempercepat keterpusangan baik pekerjaan. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, terkait dengan apa yang kita kenal dengan era disrupsi, Indonesia yang unggul itu berarti bukan pekerjaan yang ringan. Misalnya mayoritas penduduk saat itu masih berpendidikan S.Psi ke bawah, walaupun secara umum mereka yang berpendidikan rendah itu memang sudah dalam usia lebih dari 40 tahun. Dalam jangka panjang, keberadaan kelompok usia produktif kita yakini akan bertambah besar, ya, dan diharapkan akan menjadi motor penggerak perekonomian sehingga membawa Indonesia keluar dari perang negara berbangsa. Nah, itu harapan kita bersama. Dalam hal ini, Universitas Muria Kudus dan pada umumnya perguruan tinggi memiliki peran penting mencegah sumber daya manusia yang unggul dan berkualitas. Namun ada persoalan yang sangat besar karena pada saat ini masih terbatasnya Indonesia. Itu generasi Z-nya adalah 75,4 juta orang atau 27 atau hampir 30%. Sementara generasi milenial mencapai juga jumlahnya tinggi yaitu 69,9 atau 25% lebih. Hadirin yang saya hormati, data kependudukan yang tadi sudah saya share kepada Anda tadi menunjukkan bahwa angkatan kerja kita adalah sebesar 144 juta jiwa. Itu artinya kita sudah memasuki era bonus demografi. Karena jumlah kelompok usia produktif lebih banyak dibandingkan kelompok usia tidak produktif. Puncak bonus demografi di Indonesia diperkirakan terjadi pada tahun 2030 sampai 35. Nah, periode bonus demografi ini, kembali ke slide 2, diperkirakan akan terjadi pada periode ini dimulai dan tentu kita harapkan akan bisa menyumbang apa yang tadi kita cita-citakan pada tahun Indonesia Emas tahun 2045 ya. Bapak dan Ibu hadirin yang saya hormati, saat ini Indonesia sedang menuju puncak bonus demografi tersebut. Nah, syarat utamanya adalah bahwa kita supaya bisa memanen bonus demografi, kita harus membekali SDM kita semua dengan berbagai kompetensi. Nah, karena itu maka kantor Kementerian Koordinator PMK telah menyiapkan satu konsep strategi pembangunan SDM yang holistik dan integratif. Terus, Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, nah inilah apa yang kami sebut namanya Human Capital Life Cycle. menyiapkan sumber daya manusia yang unggul itu dalam konteks pekerjaan kami adalah ini sebagai satu cycle atau life cycle yang sejak dari kehidupan pertama atau 1000 hari kehidupan pertama sampai kemudian atau penduduk yang dikategorikan sebagai difabel atau disable. Nah, Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, penyiapan sumber daya termasuk mencegah terjadinya disability atau kecacatan. Selanjutnya, bayi tersebut juga harus bisa tumbuh dan berkembang dengan wajar dan harus terhindar dari yang sekarang kita sedang gerakkan, yaitu stunting. Selain asupan gizi dan juga perlu diberikan apa yang tentu pendidikan yang sifatnya elementer, dasar itu, khususnya adalah pembentukan dan penanaman nilai-nilai karakter. Ini sampai pada khususnya di tingkat SD dan sebelumnya adalah TK gitu ya. Ini. Nah, lalu pada tahap pendidikan menengah misalnya, sebagian harus sudah mulai dibekali dengan pendidikan keterampilan, sehingga setelah lulus mereka akan mempunyai kompetensi yang siap untuk bekerja atau menjadi pewirausaha. Bagi sebagian penduduk lagi atau anak, mereka juga mungkin akan melanjutkan pendidikan SMK maksud saya, kemudian juga sekolah-sekolah vokasi dan juga perguruan tinggi harus menghasilkan berdaya manusia yang produktif dan berdaya saing. Kita juga harus menyediakan program-program pelatihan yang mempersiapkan seorang masuk dunia kerja untuk menyiapkan kompetensi ataupun keterampilan baru. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, sebagai usia produktif, misalnya SDM yang unggul di Indonesia telah dibekali juga dengan beberapa keterampilan yang mestinya kita harapkan mampu mengeksploitasi dan mengembangkan potensi dirinya, baik sebagai pekerja maupun sebagai pewirausaha. Next. Bapak dan Ibu, mereka harus memiliki ke depan itu adalah penghasilan yang bisa ditabung. Ya. Mereka harus memiliki pekerjaan sehingga bisa membiayai kelompok usia yang tidak produktif dan tentu juga membiayai dirinya. Kembali ke gambar tabungan nasional ya, yang kuat akan menjadi modal pembangunan nasional, yaitu namanya national saving ya, atau national investment di situ dalam gambar yang kami tunjukkan ini. Selanjutnya mereka juga tentu akan produktif dengan penghasilan yang mencukupi untuk dirinya sendiri dan juga untuk orang lain atau keluarga yang ditanggung. Tentu saja tidak akan menghasilkan dengan seperti ini anak-anak yang kita tidak harapkan, yaitu stunting, bahkan tadi disability itu. Hadirin yang saya hormati, dengan demikian lalu intervensi secara komprehensif dan terintegrasi dalam human capital life cycle ini akan terus terjadi looping positif dalam pembangunan SDM Indonesia ke depan. Next. Hadirin yang saya hormati, tantangan utama bangsa kita adalah bagaimana beradaptasi terus terhadap globalisasi dan kehadiran revolusi industri 4.0 yang tentu kita sudah sadari akan disusul dengan era yang disebut Society 5.0. Pengaruh teknologi, khususnya teknologi digital, telah mampu menerobos masuk jauh ke ranah pribadi dan juga menghadirkan segala informasi yang tidak lagi bisa terbentuk. Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, karena itu kita betul-betul harus bijak dalam memanfaatkan kecanggihan teknologi informasi dan komunikasi, termasuk dalam bermedia sosial. Next. Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, next. Ya, SDM unggul akan menghadapi persaingan peradaban dunia digital yang luar biasa, sehingga diperlukan revitalisasi pendidikan kita dari seluruh jenjang dan seluruh jenis pendidikan, ya, pendidikan sekolah, pendidikan luar sekolah, bahkan pendidikan informal di pendidikan, dan kemudian dari tingkat taman kanak-kanak sampai perguruan tinggi. Juga perlunya penguatan karakter SDM yang kuat, tadi sudah saya tandaskan, dan yang ketiga adalah mampu beradaptasi dengan kebutuhan zaman yang tadi sudah saya jelaskan. Untuk itu, terutama beradaptasi dengan digitalisasi. Next. Lebih dari itu, Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, maka SDM unggul harus menguasai literasi baru di era ini, tidak saja membaca, menulis, dan matematik, tetapi juga literasi teknologi, literasi digital yang tadi kami sudah sebut, literasi data, tapi juga tidak kalah pentingnya yaitu literasi humanitas, termasuk kedalaman dalam praktek-praktek beragama secara baik gitu ini. Next. Dalam konteks literasi humanitas ini, Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, diperlukan apa yang disebut perubahan cara berpikir, cara bekerja, cara hidup, melalui proses penguatan 3 nilai utama, yaitu etos kerja, terutama kerja keras, berprestasi, mampu gigih, pantang menyerah, bersaing, ya, optimis, inovatif, kreatif, produktif, dan seterusnya. Kemudian mampu bekerja sama dengan orang lain, tidak selfish gitu ya, tidak menjadi menyendiri, tapi mampu kerjasama, bergotong royong, kesetiakawanan sosial yang tinggi, solidaritasnya juga tinggi dalam kemajemukan yang memang ini adalah suatu yang nggak bisa dihindari di Indonesia, negara yang berbineka misalnya. Yang tentu juga yang ketiga yaitu integritas, yaitu satunya kata dan perbuatan, misalnya dalam tindakan jujur, disiplin, dapat dipercaya, berkarakter, suportif, dan sebagainya, yang tentu juga taat hukum dan aturan. Next. Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, dalam hal tema khusus konferensi pada hari ini, konteksnya dalam pengembangan sumber daya manusia, yaitu pendidikan inklusi, Presiden Joko Widodo menyampaikan, dan ini adalah satu kebijakan, komitmen dan layanan terhadap disabilitas merupakan ukuran terhadap kemajuan peradaban suatu bangsa. Artinya, Universitas Muria Kudus yang mengambil tema ini, kami berikan apresiasi, berarti tingkat peradabannya berarti semakin bagus, karena dalam hal ini sudah peduli kepada disabilitas, terutama pendidikan inklusi. Tadi sudah disampaikan Pak Rektor, jumlah penduduk Indonesia yang termasuk difabel cukup banyak, ya. Ini tetapi masih sangat kurang yang bisa ditangani baik melalui sekolah khusus maupun melalui pendidikan inklusi. Next, Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, secara khusus apabila menukik kepada persoalan sekolah inklusi, kami mencatat 2 hal. Yang pertama, sistem dukungan tadi, misalnya ketersediaan data atau akurasi data anak berkebutuhan khusus atau anak difabel itu sebenarnya belum sangat valid. Pusat-pusat pelayanan identifikasi dan assessment untuk mendapatkan data anak difabel juga masih belum terlalu baik. Banyak keluarga yang masih menyembunyikan anaknya. Kemudian pusat sumber belajar juga masih terbatas. Selain juga belum semua daerah memiliki unit-unit pelayanan khusus bagi disabilitas. Nah, yang kedua, saya kira tantangan yang penting adalah ternyata belum semua kabupaten, kota, atau provinsi menjangkau layanan tadi dan juga belum menjadi prioritas program mereka. Demikian juga bahkan belum dianggarkan secara khusus dalam APBD misalnya, dan juga belum ada dukungan peraturan secara khusus di daerah itu. Karena itu maka perlu dicari solusi. Yang penting dalam seminar ini adalah penting sekali, contohnya misalnya bagaimana penguatan identifikasi untuk menemukan anak difabel itu sendiri, kemudian penguatan pusat-pusat sumber belajar di semua wilayah, kemudian mengefektifkan dan menambah jumlah unit layanan disabilitas, kemudian penyiapan sarana dan prasarana, khususnya bagaimana sekolah inklusi itu menjadi efektif bagi mereka. Demikian juga tentang penerbitan regulasi, dukungan yang lebih dari semua daerah, dan tentu adalah penyempurnaan regulasi itu sendiri. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, itulah next yang dapat saya sampaikan pada hari ini. Secara khusus Pak Menko melalui saya minta disampaikan bahwa mengapresiasi seminar atau conference pada hari ini yang berjudul The International Conference on Educational Psychology and Behavioral Studies, dan mari kita bertekad bersama memberikan dampak yang nyata dan seluas-luasnya bagi pembangunan manusia dan kebudayaan Indonesia yang tadi kami sudah uraikan di depan, di mana sekarang ini kita memang membutuhkan untuk ini semua. Mengakhiri pidato Pak Menko melalui saya, sekali lagi saya menyampaikan apresiasi kepada seluruh sivitas akademika Universitas Muria Kudus, dan tentu semua partisipan dan juga para speakers yang hadir dari dalam maupun dari luar negeri pada hari ini. Bapak dan Ibu yang saya hormati, sekali lagi ini adalah bukti komitmen yang luar biasa untuk ikut mencerdaskan kehidupan bangsa dari Universitas Muria Kudus, dan tentu kita berharap akan menghasilkan hal-hal yang sangat baik di masa-masa yang akan datang. Semoga Allah, Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa, senantiasa meridhoi dan memberkahi usaha kita semua, serta memberikan kekuatan lahir dan batin dalam berbakti untuk memajukan bangsa Indonesia dengan mewujudkan SDM Indonesia yang unggul. Mohon maaf atas segala kekurangan. Saya akhiri. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Pak Menteri Muhadjir Effendy. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Prof. Rafiq. Salam sehat Prof. Rafiq.
Terima kasih.
Tersun, Prof.
Sama-sama.
Thank you very much for Professor Dr. Rafiq for the outstanding speech. Next agenda, the video performs from Rumah Terapi Darul Fathonah or Dava School Kudus. For the operator, Before the next agenda, to our outstanding Professor Dr. Darsono and Professor Dr. Rafiq Karsidi, despite your thick schedule, you may leave the event to continue your agenda. Apabila Dr. Darsono dan Dr. Rafiq memiliki agenda lain, dipersilakan untuk meninggalkan room Zoom. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning.
Thank you, Prof. Okay, the next agenda, material presentation, discussion, Q&A session from our outstanding planner speaker. For the next agenda, the event will be guided by moderator, Mrs. Arsifit Korinia Ruby, M.Si Psikolog. Mrs. Arsifit Korinia Ruby is lecturer from the Faculty of Psychology at Universitas Muria Kudus, as well as a certified education psychologist. Good morning, Mrs. Ruby.
Hello, good morning, Ms. Prati. Yeah, I have to.
Okay, to Mrs. Ruby, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Prati, for the time and opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, the Honorable Plenary and participants. My name is Ruby from the Faculty of Psychology, Universitas Muria Kudus. I will be responsible for moderating and facilitating this webinar today. The Honorable Plenary and participant, children with special needs have the same right to grow and develop in the midst of families, communities, and nation as children in general. They also have the right in education. So, the purpose of this webinar is to increase understanding for the academic community, practitioner, and community about inclusive education in general, and increase understanding of the role of inclusive education in realizing superior human research. Therefore, in this webinar, we have invited Sekolah Plannery to discuss the theme of today's webinar about inclusive education for student well-being. Well, before we begin the presentation of the material by the plenary, I have a few code of conduct in this webinar. The first one is all participants are required to turn off the speaker and not allowed to interrupt. And the last one is you have an equation from the plenary. Please write your question including the speaker name in the chat box during the presentation. The moderator, which is okay, I will repeat the code of the conduct for today's webinar. The first one is all participants are required to turn off the speaker and not allowed to interrupt. And the last one, if you have any question for the plenary, please write your question including the speaker name in the chat box during the presentation. The moderator will select and read out the select question according to the duration of the available question and answer. Okay, because of Prof. Kawai has not joined us here, therefore we will continue to the next speaker. Ini nggak bisa di I'm sorry, there is something trouble with us here. Okay, I will make our agenda. First we'll have the presentation of material from Mrs. Anabelle Joy Lazaro and LMPT from S.Psi University of Science and Technology, Philippines. Our Miss Anabelle is already joined with us today. Hello, Miss Anabelle, Ma'am Anabelle.
Yes, Miss Arcivid, I am ready.
Okay, thank you very much for attending our webinar today. Good morning, Mrs. Anabelle. Thank you very much, really, for joining with us today.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, before we begin the presentation.
Thank you, dear Arcivid, our moderator. Let me first share my presentation. So is it visible already? Can you see my PowerPoint?
Not yet, ma'am.
Not yet. Please wait a moment. Please wait for a moment.
So now can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So let me start with my presentation. Before I start with my presentation, I would like to recognize and acknowledge all who spearheaded this international conference on educational psychology and behavioral studies. I would like to have a special acknowledgement to the President of Universitas Muria Kudus, Professor Dr. Darsono, and the Dean of Psychology Faculty, Ma'am Iranita Hervey Mahardayani. I would also like to greet the President of our university, Nueva Ecija University of Science and Technology, our dear Engineer, Dr. Feliciana P. Jacoba, the College of Arts and Sciences Dean, Dr. Mario M. Abesamis Jr., International and Domestic Institutional Linkages Director, Attorney Eric G. Claudio, Chairperson of the Social and Behavioral Sciences Department, Dr. Maria Cristina D. Ferrer, and our SBS family. To my fellow keynote speakers, to all the faculty, students, and all participants, pleasant and fruitful morning. A heartfelt gratitude also for inviting me to impart a piece of knowledge that will be of great help in the promotion of student well-being. My presentation for today is entitled Looking Forward, Anticipation Towards Well-being. Anticipation may be trivial in our everyday life, but it actually is a very salient component in the formation of one's attitude and behavior. Anticipation confers important evolutionary benefits to human beings, specifically expecting the forthcoming events, allow active preparations in cognitive, affective, and behavioral strategies. This will ensure survival in the changing and potential challenging environment. Anticipation is the act of looking forward. When you see someone setting up or arranging dominoes, what do you look forward to? What do you think will happen? So I would like to ask all the participants in the Zoom, please key in or type in the chat box. What are your anticipation when you see a domino or a set of domino? So what if you see a complicated pattern or a more complex pattern of dominoes? What do you anticipate? You can type in or you can key in your answer in the chat box. According to John Aguilar, they would fall. Okay, so any more? So it will have an effect to each other, yes? Or according, that is from Villarreal of Olfu, there would be a chain reaction. According to Chloe Regalado, that it would be satisfying to watch them all. So yes, when we talk about dominoes, they are expected or anticipated to fall. Dominoes, no matter how simple or complex the setup may be, are always anticipated to fall. There is some kind of a thinking or feeling that arises just by using dominoes as a stimulus. So based on the answers of the participants, though it will fall, there is a feeling of satisfaction when you see them react or interact with each other. So what if the falling of the dominoes are stopped? What will you feel? You can also key in or type your answer, your reaction. So what will you feel if somebody will stop the falling or the breakdown or the supposedly movement of the domino? So some may be disappointed. Yes. Worried. So John Aguilar is disappointed. Val Concepcion will be worried. Justin Cruz is disappointed. And Chloe Regalado, maiinis po. Yes, because according to Tads Mahal, Nicolas will be disappointed and frustrated. Yes, because basically, when we talk about anticipation, it also involves emotion. But anticipation is more inclined in positive feelings or emotions. It creates an atmosphere of inspiration and motivation instead of anxiety. Anticipation is the feeling of excitement about something that is going to happen in the near future. Looking at this sweet couple's coffee moment, what do you think will happen next? So once again, dear participants, you can key in or type your answer on the chat box. After coffee date, or after this sweet coffee moment, what do you think will happen to the couple? What do you think will they do next? What do you anticipate? So maybe according to Renga from UMK, maybe they will be married. Nagpapalpitate po according to Via Valdez. I'm sorry, I'm not able to read from Saifuddin. Miss Moderator, can you translate if you're here?
I'm sorry, but I also can speak Chinese. That was actually
Okay.
Chinese, not
Oh,
Indonesia.
yes, we are not familiar with the character. And we thank you,
For the
M.
participant,
Saifuddin, for
okay. Sorry for
participating.
interrupt, but for the participant, please speak in English for typing in the chat box, okay?
Yes,
Mr.
thank you.
Saifuddin, please speak in English. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Miss Moderator. So I'm just trying to delay what will happen next. So is there any more anticipation or something to look forward to? So actually, after a date, a sweet date, it can lead to a quiet time, viewing the sunset, or maybe a more intimate moment together. There are actually a lot of possibilities, but we are never sure. But by anticipating, we create an expectation that may facilitate a person's well being. So, some answers.
Recording in progress.
For primary level, secondary, another 6 years, and then in tertiary level, 4 or 5 years, meaning it takes 19 years. So we cannot predict what will happen in the future with this child. So what happens is that we use anticipation one step at a time. So when we talk about anticipation in education, what happens is that we just help the students develop anticipation so we can guide and provide direction to our students towards their goals. The more detailed you'll be, the better your anticipations will be. To ensure that our students, as our major clienteles, meet their anticipations, the school and teachers must identify their anticipations and use it as a basis to develop plans and policies. My dissertation is entitled Social Anticipation of Freshman College Students, a Guide to Proposed Action Plan. College level is a critical transition point in the lives of students. In order to be mindful of the students' experiences and challenges, freshman college social anticipation was studied. In this research, I'm able to identify freshman college students' social anticipation in Nueva Ecija University of Science and Technology. So as to meet the social anticipation of the new students in order for them to stay, to reduce turnover in registration, and to develop their well-being, an action plan is designed and proposed as an output of the study. I am able to discover that students' anticipation on school environment and services is identified with high expectation. And there is a significant difference in the expectation of students when grouped to the type of last school attended. Most students who attended from the private school have higher expectation regarding school environment as compared to those students who come from the public school. Another discovery is that school subjects and activities are often expected. Ironically, students or new students before coming to a new environment are more have more anticipation regarding the environment, school environment, instead of their school subjects, their loads, and their school activities. Meaning to say that the students anticipate less on their lessons and activities. Another fascinating discovery is that the top anticipation about a teacher quality are described as kind. Most students anticipate kindness regarding their teachers instead of their professionalism, instead of their being strict, being having mastery of their subject, but they are more expecting of teachers, expecting teachers to be kind and considerate. So as for my recommendation, so in order for students to achieve their goal, realize their goal, it is strongly recommended that the school administration should sensitively manage anticipation, seemingly wanting of being raised to a higher level. This pertains especially to improve school environment and services to meet the high expectation of students. Schools and administration should also conduct orientation and promote classroom subjects and activities so as to equip new students with expectations on lessons and activities, and recognize and reward teachers for being kind and considerate. It is also recommended that the school management should identify whether student anticipations are aligned with what the school offers in reality. And if a mismatch exists, to make the appropriate action and adjustment to ensure students' anticipations are responded to and addressed appropriately. This, in fact, is the real purpose of learning about students' anticipation. According to Blue EQ, social anticipation is a social perception skill that involves predicting what will happen in social interactions, expecting an outcome, and foreseeing the actions of others. So, as I end my presentation, I ask everyone to perform our roles in our community. Be proactive instead of reactive in education. I pray and I look forward to everybody who's able to attend this international conference in sharing the knowledge that we learned today so as to promote student well-being towards active learning. Maraming salamat po, and that's all for my presentation. So I look forward to the question and answer portion. If you have any question, just type it in the chat box and I will be most willing to answer. So that's all, Miss Moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Anabelle, for the outstanding presentation. Okay, moving right along, I will remind that question and answer session will be held at the end after all the speakers have delivered their material. So if you have any question for the speakers about the presentation, please type your question and the name of the speaker in the chat box during the presentation. Am I clear? Am I clear? Is everybody can hear me?
Yes, Po.
Oh, okay, clear. Okay, thank you. Next, for the participant, let us welcome speaker, Mrs. Alicia from Our Lady in my University. Good morning, Mrs. Alicia. Ma'am Alicia.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us today. Really, it's a pleasure to meet you here to share your knowledge in this webinar. Time is yours.
Thank you so much, moderator. Thank you, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you to all the behind this Success International Conference on Educational Psychology and Behavioral Studies. I'm glad that I'm part of this event. My humble presentation morning, talking about inclusive education. Inclusive education for students' well-being, the role of school. So as we move forward, I just want to by a note with everyone. I'm Professor Dr. Alicia, a BS Psychology graduate. I also earned my CPD in Education and Counseling and Educational Management here in the Philippines. I'm currently taking my PhD in Clinical Psychology. Currently, in our Fatima University as campus research member of the Campus Center for Quality Management, the member, also the member of the BS Psychology program as the program head. I'm also a trained PFA responder. I've been teaching in the collegiate level for about 19 years, and 14 years of which is here in Our Lady of Fatima University. Why? It's because I do love what the university is giving us, giving to our students and to the whole community as well. So what about inclusive education? By context, inclusive education is the process that involves active participation of students, families, educators, and other community members in the planning, implementation, and evaluation of educational programs and services that meet the needs of our students. It is also a way to ensure that all students have the opportunity to learn and participate in school's community life. So inclusive education is definitely holistic. It is not only centered in the four corners of the classroom for our students to learn, but it is forwarded to the different entities and facets so that we make sure that our students can be able to learn and maximize their potentials. What's actually the importance of inclusive education? First and foremost, it is the one that ensures that all students have the opportunity to learn and grow in a safe and supportive environment. This is very evident, especially during the time that there is this height of COVID-19 pandemic, wherein quality education was not shortchanged, despite the fact that our students are within their respective homes. It also prepares our students for the real world by teaching them how to work well with all people with different abilities. Students are not given the chance to mingle with the same end. Our students in this university are given the opportunity to engage, interact, not only within the program, but also across programs or across courses. Inclusive education helps to break down barriers between people with and without disabilities and promote understanding and acceptance. The very main core of inclusive education is giving the chance that each and every student within the community will be given the opportunity to attain quality education. How now the Philippines is moving toward inclusive education? The Philippines is actually taking a lot of steps to move forward with what this inclusive education all about. In fact, there is this inclusive education for all program, which provides training and support to the teachers, parents, the school administrators to meet the needs of the students, how heterogeneous they are. And the Philippines at this point is constantly doing training to our students, not only in the Department of Education, but also in the higher education. The Department of Education is stated in the second bullet, continuously working with UNESCO to train our teachers so that they can be able to well manage our students with and without disabilities inside the classroom. The training covers topics such as adopting instructions for students, creating supportive environment, and working collaboratively with parents. We do acknowledge that despite the fact we are moving forward with the 21st century, but then the support of the parents from our students are very important. These are very vital as we try to take the holistic mechanism for our student to move forward. In fact, even the alternative learning system in the Philippines is also under the principle of inclusive education. Why? Though it is non-traditional learning opportunities for the students where they can be able to take and attend regular classes on a different scheme, ALS is very helpful nowadays. Why? It's because this program offers a variety of courses that include training in vocational term, basic literacy and numeracy courses, which allow our students to learn at their own pace at comfortable environment. So even they have dropped out from school or they cannot attend regular classes, they can still have the chance to get education. Another thing is the 2019 the Department of Education Order number 21 titled the Policy Guidelines on the K-12 Basic Education Program, which includes the policy framework on inclusive education. This framework promotes the right of every Filipino to quality, equitable, culture-based, and complete basic education. On the first quarter of 2022, the Republic Act 11650, instituting a policy of inclusion and services for learners with disabilities in support of Inclusive Education Act. Through this policy, we can identify the rights of the people with disabilities, outline strategies for improving access to education and other services, and identify areas where additional support is needed. So I may safe to say that the Philippines have made significant progress towards inclusive education in the recent years. However, as we know, there are so much things that we have to be done. In order for inclusive education to be successful, it is vital that everyone must be involved. It's not only the students, it's not only the parents, it's not only the teachers, but the whole community. We have to work together for us to attain the common goals of what inclusive education is giving us by principle. On this manner, what teachers need to know about inclusive education? I was able to pinpoint three important concepts in relation to this. And these are awareness, patience and understanding, open-mindedness, and flexibility. What about awareness? We as teachers, since I've been in teaching for quite some time, we are aware. Okay, we are aware, and I do believe that all teachers here are aware of the different types of our students. This includes our capability to pinpoint some concern of our students. So from there, teachers should be able to familiarize with accommodations and modifications that may be needed for these students to become successful in school. Patience and understanding is another plus factor of a teacher. As teachers, we need to be patient and understanding because not all students learn the same way. As we've said, no, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It doesn't mean that one is effective. It can also be effective to all. Some students may require more time and assistance than the others. And as teachers, it is important for us to be patient and help our students to learn on their own pace, especially now that there is a blending of online and the face-to-face scheme. The third one is the open-mindedness and flexibility. Teachers need to be open-minded and flexible. And I do believe that all teachers who are attending right now are having all these kind of characteristics to be considered as really teachers who support our students every now and then. So with that, inclusive education, though it's still a new concept for many schools, and some changes may be required for it to work correctly, but then teachers must be willing to adapt teaching style to meet the needs of our students. As we all know, our teachers are very adaptive to the changing world. So what are the benefits of inclusive education? I was able to write a number of benefits of inclusive education, and one of those is it helps all students reach their full potential. Through inclusive education, regardless of the abilities and disabilities of our students, the approach will help our students to reach their full potential by providing necessary support for them to become successful. From the basic to the middle high school up to the collegiate level, all our students are needing support. Another thing, inclusive education creates a culture of acceptance and understanding. It helps to break down the barriers that often exist between students with and without concerns. It builds friendship and bonds between classmates. Through inclusive education, they can have the opportunity to get to know with each other, whether that is online or offline. Through inclusive education, they can be able to extend their social interaction with their classmates. Inclusive education also prepares our students to life after school. Our students turns our school to become their training ground, but then afterwards, they will be stepping out in our school. And how prepared they are. Of course, it's because of inclusive education and the tireless and the untiring support of our teachers as well as the administrators of our university. Then definitely we can prepare our students after school. Through inclusive education, they can be able to learn to work together and respect other differences. Another thing, inclusive education benefits the whole school community. It can create a more tolerant and understanding environment. It is also allowing our students to help learn from each other and to help to develop empathy and compassion. Especially nowadays, that life is more and more turning to become more and more complicated as what others describe it. And therefore, support from the others are very important. Inclusive education also increases self-esteem and confidence among students. By providing learning environment that is welcoming and supportive, inclusive education can help all students feel seen, valued, regardless of their disabilities, abilities, or differences. From there, they can be able to boost their confidence as students come to see themselves as capable and valuable member of the community. Inclusive education also improves social skills among students. It allows more significant interaction between students of different ability levels, which help to break down barriers and misconception. Then, inclusive education also welcomes diversity within school. Through inclusive education and the feeling of acceptance, being respected, you feel that you are being valued at all times. Then it follows that you define your experience in your school as a vital component of how you make yourself as a person right now. And through inclusive education environment, it is essential for promoting social justice and ensuring that all students have the opportunity to reach their full potential. Another thing is that inclusive education also improves academic outcomes. How? It may be due to the fact that inclusive settings provide students with a more diverse learning and experience, which allows them to learn from and interact with classmates who have different strengths and weaknesses. They can also have the chance to do peer connection, peer tutoring, peer learning, and that is also one way to improve academic outcomes. And lastly, inclusive education helps to reduce bullying and harassment. As long as you feel that you are welcome, you are supported, then it follows that it can provide some negative experiences inside the classroom or inside the campus in general. Now, how inclusive education can be implemented in schools? I was able to consider two. One of those is to modify the teaching methods, materials, and resources used in the classroom. Our students are already changing. Their needs are changing. And therefore, as teachers, we are also working into the chance of meeting the needs of our diverse students. So this can be done by creating visual aids and learning tools that are accessible to all students, regardless of their abilities. It is also important to ensure that the classroom environment is welcoming and supportive so that all students feel comfortable participating in class activities. It's a really important mechanism on the part of our teachers to understand the differences of our students. As I mentioned, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and we have to value the differences of our students from the cognitive up to the affective level. Another way to implement inclusive education is by creating a culture of inclusion within the school community. It can be done by educating staff, parents, and students about the benefits of inclusive education and providing training and support for those working with students, especially those with special needs. With that, allow me to present you what we're doing here in our Leader Fatima University, Philippines. Just to give you a short image of the university where I am currently connected with, our Leader Fatima University, awarded by the Philippines Commission on Higher Education as an autonomous institution that allows independent control over its day-to-day operation and curriculum. OLFU is also a recipient of the Philippine Quality Award that recognizes achievements of public and private sector organizations in their journey towards performance excellence. OLFU is also an ISO 9001-2015 certified, which means that the university is compliant to international standards developed by the International Organization for Standardization. I'm very much happy also to share with you that our dynamic president, Dr. Caroline Marian S. Enriquez, was a recipient of a Trailblazer in Inclusion Award last October of this year. Aside from that, our student admission policies and academic code is really forwarding to the concept of inclusive education. And this is well written in the student handbook that can be read by our students. And at the same time, this is also part of our discussion during students and parent orientation, which was held every first week before the usual opening of classes. And as stated here, as registered office policies and procedure, which was considered as our section 3, in the student manual, it is stated that admission to OLFU academic program is open to all. That is, regardless of race, a self-paced or independent study, wherein activities, the set of tasks, and acquisition of skills that are generally well covered within the synchronous session is the time for our students to do their output or their performance tasks through their Canvas LMS or their Canvas learning management system. At this point, they can be able they have the full potential to acknowledge the independence of their learning process. However, they will be guided with a deadline defined by their teachers. In Our Lady Fatima University Antipolo City campus, where I am currently the program head, I may say that inclusive education will not become possible without the help of my faculty members. So I believe that my faculty members are the wind beneath the wings of our psychology students here in Antipolo campus. Their unconditional support and love, and how they manage their responsibilities as teachers online and offline is definitely something worth it. And these are the men and women that I have always within the department for me to move forward. What about inclusive education to our psychology majors? Another thing, based from the statement as given in the first slide of mine, inclusive education is holistic. It is not only directed in the four corners of the classroom or the four corners of the room where our students been there in respective of their particular areas. But then I do consider that inclusive education is extended to community, to other stakeholders. These stakeholders are vital component to the success of inclusive education, to the success of our students, which is the core of reference of what inclusivity is all about. So I want to welcome you to our psychology community. On the first picture, as you can see, this is a picture that was taken during the pre-pandemic time, wherein our students are also active in participating in other activities, which is also their return learning experiences. This picture was during the event of the research exposition, wherein some of our students was commended because of their research outputs. Aside from that, our students are also active in community involvement. This picture was taken through the effort of our SOCI coordinator in our department to take the chance for our students to interact with the community. We have our adapted community where they can be able to share their thoughts, trying to familiarize and putting into practice what they learned with us. They're also active in participating in our Psych Organization Week, which I do believe this is also a sign of inclusive education. Because aside from academic involvement, I consider the same program in the near future. So, our
recording in progress
can be able to engage with others, not only here in our campus, not only in our university, but we can be able to extend beyond in our country. We have 2 batches of our students who participated in the student exchange program, acknowledged and processed by our CPDAP of the university, wherein one of our students was now working in the Netherlands. She was Mirano, who is currently having a very stable job in the Netherlands after completing her scholarship grant. Another batch of our students who participated was Miss Chipe and Miss Corpus, who went there for about 2 semesters in Hanbat University in South Korea.
I'm sorry, Prof. Alicia, but I have to remind you that you still have 2 minutes left.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And from there, inclusivity is still evident. So for testimonial talk, we're also active in the social involvement and community and adapted community. Why? It's because we do believe that in inclusive education, you have to get involved yourself. As what we have in all of you, we have our E7, which is the community values, ensuring honesty, academic integrity, mutual respect, personal accountability, demonstration of values, proper compassion, and being there where our faculty members will be with our students at all times. And as I move forward with the last slide of mine, the core values of the graduate attributes of what we have in the university is very vital component on how we are going and we are moving forward in realizing the idea, the principle of inclusive education, which is to become achiever, not only in the classroom, but also when they step out in our room, when they step out in our school. With that, again, I am very much thank you to the administrators of the Universitas Kudus Muria, or the Universitas Muria Kudus, for the invite, and on behalf of the OLFU community, especially to our president, our very dynamic president, Dr. Caroline Marian Enriquez, my campus admin dean, Engineer Wilfredo M. Basilio, I'm very thankful, and this is my presentation. I hope you were able to learn something this morning. Thank you, and I'm here signing off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Alicia, for giving us such informative presentation that increased our insight. Okay. Okay, for the next.
For being
recording
flexible.
In progress.
Well, it's sort of inclusive, right? So yeah, thank you very much. So today I'd like to talk about the inclusive education for students' well-being. So well-being is kind of really key term in these days. And I'll just let me introduce what well-being is, and then I'm gonna plunge into inclusive education. Okay. So my name is Nori Kawai, and I'm a Deputy Executive Director of International Affairs and a professor at Hiroshima University. So my major is, inclusive education, special education, but my original major is speech language pathology. So, I have been doing a lot of different kinds of research projects, and hopefully, some of you guys are interested in, learning, studying, this area. Please consider come over to Japan. That might be, because we also have lots of, students from Indonesia. So, we always welcome you guys to come over to Japan. Okay. All right, so let me start with the definition of the well-being. Okay, so well-being is kind of arbitrary word, and there are so many translations or interpretation of what the well-being is. So let me introduce some of the the definitions of well-being. So one definition says a combination of a person's intellectual, physical, mental, emotional, and social health. So, well-being is, it's not like, doing something good or well. So how are we going to keep, our wellness? Wellness could be, intellectual, physical, mental, emotional, and social health. So not only, considering about the person's health, but also social health, environmental health is also important to sustain well-being, especially in a school environment. If bullying is happening in certain classroom, which is never be well-being. So, while there should be some students who care about bullying, but, as long as bullying is happening in the classroom environment is not healthy, right? So we really have to consider, the person, inside of that person's health and environmental health. Okay, another definition says a whole school approach to well-being that aims to help schools create safe, supportive, and respectful teaching and learning communities where everyone's well-being is important. So, as I told you, creating the healthy environment, which is, really safe, supportive, and respectful for each other, between teacher and students, students, teachers. Okay, so everybody has to have the, those kind of environment to support each other, respect each other, and the environment has to be safe. So which kind of environment will create well-being? So you can see, well-being is sort of, related to the environment of inclusion, inclusive environment. Okay. So this is related to, students, students have to feel safe and they have to feel, I'm a valued person, okay? And, I am the meaning being in a classroom and, I can connect with teacher and other students. And I feel I'm learning something by taking courses, classes, okay? So everything is, fulfilling, in terms of the feelings or psychological aspects. And also, they also have to have a good relationships with each other, and mutual learning environment is really important to create the inclusive society. So while everybody has like pros and cons or weaknesses or or strengths. Okay, so we share those kind of ideas. Well, I have really good at painting, but I'm not good at math. But other students might be really good at math, so they can learn together. And they never point out, you are not good at math or something. They really have to encourage them to learn, and they have to know everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And even though that specific student is not good at math, he or she might be really good at, paintings. That's something, they have to respect him or her. So, they really have to have mutual understanding. And the role, one of the important roles of the teachers to have is how, they can motivate or they can promote those kind of respectful environment to each other. Okay. And those kind of environment will produce greater self-esteem and improved learning outcomes. So everybody has to have their self-esteem. I can do it, instead of, I don't think I can make it. Okay, so that will cause their, intentions or their willingness to learn. And they, even though they face some challenges, they feel like, this is challenging, but I would like to try again, or I would like to try more, instead of, this is really too difficult, it's too much, I don't think I can make it. Okay, so everybody could feel like that way. So, I don't think I can make it. But if other students or teachers encourage him or her, that's okay. It might be too hard, but why don't we try this, or something else? Or you can just show him or her some alternative way to learn, or something like that. So we try to help our students to be able to learn something, and they feel like, I'm learning, instead of, I don't think I can make it. So, self-esteem is really important, because it could change their behaviors and the feelings or attitudes towards learning. So we usually deal with a lot of students with disabilities. So please consider, let's consider about, you can just imagine, your students, okay, with disabilities. There are so many students, who have difficulties communicating each other, or, they have some learning problems. We can, easily say, something, their weaknesses, but at the same time, we really have to consider their strengths. Okay, well, that specific student is not good at math, but he is, really good at, like a language or, social studies or something. Okay, so we really have to consider, their strengths and their weaknesses, and at the same time, well, by looking at or observing a classroom environment, there are so many different needs, learners' needs, and you really have to notice, oh, okay, we have lots of needs, we're not just teaching general people. General never means, we're just observing students well, we just only looking at the one aspect. That's why we could easily say general. But everybody has, different, characteristics or, pros and cons or, strengths and weaknesses. We really have to observe, each student, those kind of aspects. But at the same time, we also look at the, the whole classroom's environment, including, the students' communication skills, and how they're going to create, certain teams, or something. So we really have to look at individual students, but at the same time, we really have to look at them as one group. Okay, so that you can understand, oh, okay, well, looking at the individual student and whole group, you can identify, what kind of difficulties or what kind of strengths, our students have. Okay, then by looking at each individual student, you can think of what kind of accommodations and modifications you can provide. And at the same time, by looking at the whole classroom, whole group students, okay, you can just think of, okay, what kind of environmental change we have to make for whole classroom group to learn better. Okay, so we really have to look at the individual students, but we also look at the whole classroom. And also the collaboration is really one key term in these days to promote inclusive education. So not only looking at each classroom, especially it is important for school principals, okay, to look at the whole school. How we're gonna make our teachers collaborate each other. Some schools, like school principals try to compete their teachers each other. Okay, well, class A, well, you are doing better than class B or something. But that kind of environment, doesn't never be safe, right? Teachers are pretty much stressed out. Of course, students are pretty much stressed out. Instead of competing each classrooms, we really have to create the way how they're going to collaborate each other, how they're going to combine the idea of teaching, teaching methodologies or teaching strategies, or I just created this teaching material. This is not mine, but I can share. This is mine, but this is not only mine, but also I can share this this material to you, so that we can together use this material. So that we can not only looking at students, but also other teachers, because we have to inherit the good practice for other teachers, okay, especially for the experienced teachers, veteran teachers. I really expect you guys to teach or train or raise younger generations of teachers, okay? So, because you have lots of experiences, it's not only yours, but also you really have to consider how you're gonna, give those kind of strategies, experiences to younger generations. Those kind of supportive environments or attitudes or behaviors will transparent, always transferred to your students. Okay, so students are really looking at and observing well how teachers are, communicating each other, and they copy your behaviors. Okay, so in order to create a supportive community in your school, you guys have to be really supportive. That's a really important aspect we have to consider. Okay, so from the fourth one from the top, the fourth one from the top, involving all stakeholders, okay? So I just mentioned teachers, students, or principals as well. But, what kind of other stakeholders we can think of? Of course, parents and guardians. They are really important stakeholders to contribute to your school. And lots of people, in your environment, school environment, so just outside of school, there are so many people, living outside of schools. They could be good stakeholders, right? So we really have to think of, in order to create inclusive society, inclusive school, how we can arrange those stakeholders to be able to contribute to your school, okay? All right. And identify the needs of students within a school, plan to provide appropriate support. Those are kind of common sense, right? So you guys should know those kind of stuff. Okay. All right. So what social factors inclusion promotes? So, well-being is really related to inclusion, creating inclusive environment, right? So, it is really important for students, how to interact with peers. Well, some peers might have disabilities, others might not. But, regardless of with and or without disabilities, they really have to learn how to interact, with their peers, so communication skills. So this is also, important for teachers to show them the good practice, okay, how to interact with peers. Okay, especially, when I observe some of the classrooms in Japan, while you might feel like, oh, Japan, it's really advanced, but well, it could be, but it's not always, okay? So some teachers don't know anything about special education or inclusive education. If I visit those kind of classrooms, sometimes, students with disabilities are in a regular classroom, but they never communicate each other, okay? And, and also, I sometimes observe, some like a teacher assistants, presenting in the classroom, okay? And, he or she has been working really hard to deal with students with disabilities because this is, his or her role. But at the same time, he or she could be the big wall, they are distinguishing between students with disability versus, students without disabilities, because, if he or she trying to help, that student all the time, the student could lose the chance to communicate with other students, right? And the students without disabilities start feeling about, the student. Oh, okay, well, this is, that specific student is not my friend, even though he is in my classroom, because, that specific teacher is always taking care of that student. So this is his or her job. This is not my thing. Okay, so even though there is no physical wall, I can observe the big wall, like a psychological wall between students with and without disabilities. That never be inclusion, right? So we really have to consider how to design inclusive, environment in a classroom. Okay, so communication, interaction, which is one of the key. We have to consider how to promote, students' communications. Okay. And also, playing cooperatively. That is also, important, teachers usually observe their students, during class time. And they tend not to observe them during playtime or in recess. But many problems could happen during recess time when teachers not observing. Okay, so of course, you guys are really busy, teachers are really busy, and they might not have time to observe all the time. But, if you try to look at your students, during recess time or short period of time of break, you might see something different in terms of the attitudes or communication styles or relationships, while you observe them during class time. That is really important. So, you really have to understand and notice, oh, okay, when I'm not observing, my students, oh, I can see the big difference, between class time and recess time. That is really important. Okay, so if you see lots of problems in terms of having relationships between students with and without disabilities during recess time, you really have to plan on how they're going to play cooperatively. Okay. And also, well, this is also, one of the communication, skills, but they're taking turns. Okay. Some teachers, underestimate students with disabilities abilities. So, the teacher might feel like, oh, okay, well, even though I asked this question to that specific student, I don't think he can answer it because he has disabilities. Well, you can try, you can try. You never, underestimate students' abilities, okay? But at the same time, you really have to think of what kind of accommodations you have to provide, okay? So some students might not understand language well. In that case, you may want to show him, the picture along with your, verbal question, so that he might be able to understand what you're asking. Okay, so those kind of, ideas or, might change students' learning. It could lead changing his life, right? So, we always have to come up with those ideas, and we never know if it's going to be effective or not, but we can try, okay? We can always try. That is really important, okay? And dealing with anger, that is also important. Some students are not really, verbal, right? And some students are verbal, but their, recognition of language is better. In that case, they could be really, physical when they express their feelings. Okay, so it could be a violent activities or actions, which gonna be a really problem, right? So, but most of the cases, their expressive vocabulary skills, expressive language skills are lower than their receptive language skills. Okay, so you may want to think of how he or she could express himself, herself, by providing appropriate methodologies or appropriate accommodations for him or her. Okay, so if you can't come up with any ideas, you can consult special education teachers or speech pathologists if they're available. Okay, that is really important. Teachers, they're really, they tend to think of, oh, because of, if they face some problems, they always think of, oh, because this problem is because of me, I have to solve the problem. Yeah, partially it might be correct, but it doesn't always correct, okay? So collaboration, as I told you, collaboration with other teachers, that's really important. And that is okay to ask questions if you
Prof.
don't know.
Kawai?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you only have 2 minutes left.
Oh, 2 minutes? Oh, okay.
Yes,
I thought I have 45 minutes.
No, only 30 minutes.
Oh, 20 minutes? Oh, okay. Well,
30 minutes. Okay.
The schedule I got is totally different from what you have. Okay, well, 2 minutes? Sorry, I don't think I can finish it within 2 minutes. So I thought it's going to be 45 minutes. Then I don't know where to go, but okay. Well, because it's 2 minutes, let me, talk about the last part of my presentation. Okay, well, well, this is almost the last of the presentation. This is like a take-home message, but, well, it is really important to create inclusive society and the environment to promote well-being. Okay, so it is really important for your students to have allocation of teacher and support staff time and being listened to, paid attention to. So some students feel like, well, teachers always paying attention to well-done students or smart students. They never look at me. Okay, so you really have to think of, you observe everybody and you respect everybody. Okay, so if students feel respected, listened to, paid attention to, they try to, work better. They have lots of, self-confidence, they could achieve. Okay, and the interaction with other peers, you really, at the same time, you really have to teach other students how to deal with students with disabilities. Okay, and being free of harassment or bullying, that is really important. You really have to try to create a safe environment in the classroom. Okay. All right. Yeah. Sorry. I thought I'm gonna have 45 minutes, but seems like it's like 20 minutes or so. So sorry about that. But well, I just I think I gave you the core message, and hopefully you listen to my core message. So okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Kawai, for giving us such inspiring presentation that increase our knowledge. I am very sorry about the mess of the schedule here. It's quite hectic here, but thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule, Prof. Kawai.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, for the next plenary, we have Dr. Chakadee Waiyavutti as for 5 speakers. Welcome, Dr. Chakadee.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. We're so glad that you could be here to share your insight in this webinar.
I am really honored to be here too. Thank you.
Okay, so before the presentation of the material, I will introduce our speakers. Dr. Chakadee is a lecturer at Thaksin University, Thailand. She is also experienced in clinical psychologist, mental health center CAT, school psychologist guidance and counseling division, and as a research assistant ECT AIM. So without further ado, now allow me to welcome Dr. Chakadee to present her material. For Dr. Chakadee, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my slide. One moment, please.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, can you see my slide now? All right, can you see my slides?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I am Chakadee from Faculty of Education, Thaksin University. I'm from the Department of Psychology, so I'm so glad to be here today. I was fortunate enough to be able to listen to at least 2 speakers in front of me, and so I learned a lot from them. So this is a really very important topic. And so first, when I was contacted to be here, I said yes right away, because I know that student well-being and inclusive education are very important topic, as now we have more and more students coming from very diverse background. So we need to be mindful to our students, where they're from, who they are, what they want, and also what we can provide them with the quality of education that we can. And I need to apologize for my voice because I'm recovering from COVID-19 now. But I believe that I can finish my session probably today. So I, actually, I know that everyone has already listened to the definitions of well-being and also the inclusive of education. And I am so sorry that I need to go again to some definitions of these two terms, because I don't know, it's just something that we need to throw into our audience, that to make sure that everyone has the background knowledge of what we are going to walk through. So let me talk a little bit about the background of student well-being. So over the past decades, there has been growing interest in students' well-being, not only in relation to how it may impact on student learning, but also at the policy level. We all know that. So now we all want to examine whether and how education system that prioritize student well-being can actually foster positive and fulfilling life experiences. So this can be found in a bunch of scientific research articles, as well as world-class education assessment frameworks such as PISA. Everyone must have heard that PISA also identify or define the terms of student well-being as well. And they even have an assessment for the student well-being. So they define well-being as the quality of student life, focusing on their cognitive, psychological, physical, and social capabilities. So these fantastic four coming together to become student well-being. And also OECD doesn't stop right there. They continue to try to distinguish between various dimensions of well-being. So they embedded these four capabilities into different aspects of student life: overall life, self-related life, school-related life, and also out of school life, to be able to be able to examine in detail of each student life, how student can be really happy by look at piece by piece of each aspect of their life, and looking at these four capabilities. Let's see what actually are these four capabilities that we want students to be able to achieve. So the definition by PISA also emphasizes student well-being as an active inner process, actually, to achieve their personal and social goals. So student well-being covers these four discrete aspects that they are interrelated. These four are not independent, of course. They are strictly correlated. And the first one is the cognitive well-being. And you know that when you have a cognitive well-being, you have knowledge of the roles that you are taking in a society, in a school, in your family. Like, for example, if you are a lifelong learner, or you are a productive workers, or you are an active citizen, if you know your roles, you have knowledge and competence required to fulfill those roles. That means you have cognitive well-being. What about psychological? For psychological well-being, this is the emotional part. So student opinion and feelings about their own life, their educational activities, and also the personal objectives they may have set by themselves. The third one is the physical. This is simply mean that in that student have, the capacity of their body to be able to lead a healthy lifestyle. And the last one is the social one. And I think this one is very important, especially for the adults and students, because you know that for the social well-being, this covers relations with family, with peers, with someone very important for them, and educators, as well as the perception of the schools and social environment. And we all know that students in all levels, elementary, secondary, college, relationships with peers and teachers or instructors are strong indicators for their well-being. So that's why they need to achieve these four to be able to have, to be able to achieve well-being. Say that. and
Recording
also
in
higher
progress.
satisfaction and engagement level with the schools, with the academic things, with their peers, with anything in school. So if they can achieve emotional well-being, things looks like it's going to be in a good shape for students. And some investigators also examine perceived well-being level across learners, teachers, school leaders, and also support staff in a large-scale study. There's the research in Australia that trying to understand what like student well-being across this group of people, and they found that learners consider well-being as multifaceted. And so that means that it may comprise such aspects as student voice and regard for their positions. So the exercising of rights and combining respect are something that students really need for them to achieve student well-being. So this simply means that for learners, recognition of their voice and their own self as valuable, respect-worthy member of the community area of particular significance for well-being. So this is very important for some students that they have, students have to be heard. And those, especially today, we know for sure that all voices from students need to be heard and need to be taken care of. When we look at the student well-being, we need to look specifically at the student well-being at school as well. So what student well-being at school? It is something increasingly conceptualized not only at the individual level anymore, but now at the collective level, at a school-wide commitment. Because now schools fostering individual and collective well-being of students provide essential for their holistic growth and development at school and beyond. And so to this end, school play a pivotal role in students' individual and collective well-being, incorporating well-being into planning and process, striving for excellence in teaching and in learning, connecting on many levels, and also help students build trust and respectful relationships for students. And those are the key for success for students. What about school climate? Yeah, school climate is another key success to be able to achieve student well-being. So another framework for investigating school climate is done by OECD. This covers 4 areas of school experience. The first is safety, pertaining to maladaptive behavior like classroom discipline. There should be no student bullying, something like that, for students to feel safe. The second one is the teaching and learning, for sure, that comprising academic support, responses and engagement, civic education, and so on. And the third one is school community. We all know that school community comprises like of student-teacher relations, student cooperation, teamwork, respect for diversity, and so on. And the last one is institutional environment, covering aspects like the school facilities, the resources, availability of learning resources. So things that make students comfortable and convenient, and also support that their learning and support their life in the school. If they have 4 of this, that could be possible that student well-being will be achieved. The other thing is very importantly, very interesting, is the school climate that defined by NSW. Those couldn't be regarded as different anymore. So students with all kind of things that have differences has to be considered as inclusion. And so what inclusive education is, characteristic of inclusive education is raise student diversity through the deployment of learning environment and learning opportunities for all. So simply put, I would say that inclusive education is just education for all. And I like to share with you guys some situation for the inclusive education in Thailand. We are going forward to education for all, but it's not that easy step to go. So we committed to the first SDG, yes, and the Convention on the Rights of the Personal, Intellectual, Social, Emotional, Community, all those things. Probably disadvantaged student would be a comprehensive term to describe all this group of students. This group of students has to have equal and quality education as of regular student, and we cannot categorize them anymore. Now we cannot see that these are regular students, these are special students, because if we do that, that means we still categorize them, and that means that we still discriminate them. So we cannot do that anymore. We need to include them into all and give the same education for all. And ask me, yes, if there are any barriers for inclusive education implementation in Thailand. Yes, there are a lot of barriers, and we are working through it. So inclusive education in Thailand depends on the degrees of disability. That's the first problems, and it's not for all yet. But we are going toward all, and it is going to be resolved soon. So Thailand is trying to promote inclusive education. There are barriers that the country needs to overcome. The first one is the public policy, because we need to stop categorizing students in order to place students with disability in regular schools. And the second one is that with a lack of assistive devices, universal design, adaptive teaching and learning materials, these resources are very necessary for students, and these students with disability are less able than them, because if they feel that they are less able, they're not treat them equally. So we need to make them to make sure that they feel that all students are the same. They have the same capability of learning, and also not only students, teachers as well. So we need to change the attitude from before to a new one, that we can really provide education for all and everyone are treated the same. The last one is the knowledge of disability, and I think this is very important. And as I am an instructor in a teacher training college, and so if my student cannot differentiate between what kind of disabilities of their students are, I think that's a failure of my career, because I need to provide them the knowledge of the disorders of with like special special needs our students have, and disabilities. I need to make sure that my student can differentiate disabilities. And if they don't have knowledge about student disability, and then they assume that student did not study hard enough and they push the student so hard, that's going to be a failure in my role as well. So we are aware of this, and as a teacher training college, we make sure that our student teachers are fully trained in providing education for this group of students. So the last one, I would like to mention that to promote inclusive education in Thailand, and I think in many countries as well, we need a public policy for inclusion study, something that is very sensitive to this group of students. And also, let's look at the real picture of what is going on in schools, and then start from there to make a public policy. The other one is the availability of human and material resources. And this is a big, this is a big issue. It involves a lot of money that has to pour on this particular group of students, and also schools in all over the country. The next one is inclusive instructional strategy. And we need our students or our teachers to be able to adjust their curriculum or their instruction to meet the needs of all students. And the last one, we need everyone to respect differences and understand that differences are just normal and everyone can learn. They just need some understanding, and they just need some knowledge about them. And that's our work to do. And so if we can provide them with all four that I just talked about, I think it's not too far that Thailand can achieve the inclusive education. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chakadee, for giving us such an informative presentation that increased our insight. So, the honorable participant, let us welcome our last speaker, but not the least, Dr. Trubus Raharjo, M.Si Psikolog from Universitas Muria Kudus. He is lecturer and psychologist in Universitas Muria Kudus, founder Sekolah Disleksia in Central Java, Indonesia. So for Dr. Trubus, hello, Dr. Trubus.
Hello, good morning.
Okay, good
Miss
morning.
Ruby,
Thank
yeah.
you. Okay, thank you for
Okay.
joining us today. So time is yours.
Thank you very much, Miss Ruby. Okay, thanks for all. I will present about my material. Maybe I will present another material from the other presenting. I will present. I will try to share related about dyslexia. Yeah, maybe there's a new topic in this minute. This topic is dyslexia is a specific learning disorder with reading and writing. Yes. Next, as we know, yeah, reading is complex behavior involving the ability to think, and when read each of the word will show a type of different cognitive activity.
Recording in progress.
Of what is heard. The area of damage in the left temporoparietal area is referred to as Wernicke's area. Yes. Okay, next. Yes, this is the picture from the damage of impairment of language. Aphasia is an impairment of language usually caused by left hemisphere damage. Its other broadcast area, impaired speaking, and to a weak Wernicke's area about impaired understanding. Okay, next. Yes, the other factor is genetic, a genetic factor. Some studies focus on the genetic basis of dyslexic children. Some children who were born with parent has dyslexia are genetically at risk for dyslexia disorder. The potential risk of dyslexic range from 30 or 50% in children with dyslexic parents. Yes. Okay, next. Yes. Some hypotheses about learning difficulties, about dyslexia. That's a phonological deficit hypothesis. In the phonological deficit hypothesis theory, the predictor which is considered to have the strong influence on reading and writing skill is phonological awareness. Yeah. The correlation between phonological awareness and reading skill is evident that phonological skill lead to good or poor reading skill, and the effect of phonological skill. Intervention on children with low phonological awareness has a significant effect on phonological skill in dyslexic children. Yes. And the other hypothesis is automatization. Yes, this false writing. Yeah. The automatization deficit hypothesis. The automatization deficit hypothesis theory proposes an automatization deficit scheme as the main deficit factor in dyslexia. which will affect the occurrence of a phonological deficit, working memory deficit, speech deficit, and learning deficits. Yes. Next. And the other hypothesis about deficit cerebral. Nicholson and Fawcett said that explain various problems with dyslexics illustrate that some of the problem in motor skill and automatization is in the cerebellum. The theory of cerebral deficit hypothesis review that several studies have proven that motor skill problem are not significantly related to reading difficulties and phonological problem, but become a secondary system as problem is motor skill and comorbidities. So hypothetical theories trying to identify the nervous system that's underlying the possible cause of dyslexia by focusing on factor by proposing a hypothetical framework of cerebral deficit. Yes. Okay. Symptoms of dyslexia at school. Yeah. Once inability in the brain processing from reading or writing. The other symptom, students have difficulty in reading and writing. We know that. And then understanding long distance difficulty, inability to memorize or short letter or alphabet. Yes. Okay. And then, okay, specific symptom. We know that difficulties in spelling, reading, and writing almost the same time, like P or T, P or P, M, or W, N, and U. Yeah. And the other specific symptom, we know a difficulty to read the words that contain consonants either in middle or at the end of the words. For example, chair, he called chair. Atau kalau di bahasa Indonesia ada kursi jadi kusi, rumah jadi rumah, horse jadi horse. That is a similar spelling. And the other specific symptom, disproportionate letter size and shapes, mixed use of upper and lower case letter, difficulty holding writing instrument, consistent writing skill. Yes, that is like, okay, next. Yeah. Nah, this is an example for writing dyslexic children. Yes. Okay, next. Yeah. Treatment for dyslexic student. One, avoiding the stigma that children with dyslexia are stupid because they have a difficult reading and or writing. And give a convenient learning, providing remedial teaching and therapy. Providing a comfortable learning situation have a significant impact on improving reading skill in children with dyslexia. And the provision of remedial teachings program will also provide improvement in reading and writing skill in children with dyslexia, and also by doing therapy for them. Okay, I think that is my presentation. Thank you very much for Mrs. Ruby. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Trubus, for an outstanding presentation that increased our knowledge. So, the honorable participant, we move to our next agenda. This is the question and answer session. Is all the presenters are still here? Ma'am Alicia, Ma'am
Yes,
Anabelle,
ma'am, here.
Ma'am Chakadee,
Yes.
Dr. Trubus, Ma'am Chakadee.
Okay.
Yes, still here.
Ma'am Chakadee, is she still here? No? Okay. Ma'am Anabelle? Hello, Ma'am Anabelle?
Yes, hello again, Miss
Okay.
Civid.
It's quite difficult to spelling my name. Okay. Okay, I will generate some of the question from the participant. Actually, we have the same question here. So I will generate from Rizky and Nurhadi and Shaif. Okay. So the question is, why should we apply anticipation in life when what every human being plan is already determined by the gods of the universe? Sometimes what we plan and God has another plan. How to deal with the life depression while our anticipation is not what we want? That was the question.
Okay, so I think that question is from Safe Group. Thank you for the question. In psychology, when we say anticipation, it is actually a human nature to expect the future. We apply anticipation as our tool for our survival in life. And because the human mind is very powerful, that it can actually process present stimuli to develop anticipation. I think that when we talk about anticipation, it helps us to hope, to create hope. And with regards to God's wonderful and magnificent plan, I can say that we can still apply anticipation related to our faith in God. It's true that not all our anticipations are met and realized, and instead of satisfaction, it can lead to disappointment and sometimes frustrations, sometimes even up to depression. Let me cite an example. When you see a very beautifully decorated cake and you anticipated that the taste will equate the appearance, but it did not, you might get disappointed or frustrated for a while. But what you do is you do not stick or stay with the frustration. What you do is you develop another anticipation. Remember that anticipation is expecting or looking forward for the near future. So when we talk about depression, it takes quite a time. So I think managing depression is another topic, and I hope and I look forward for more webinars like this in the future. So maybe we can discuss that topic if the audience or the participants are really interested. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that was the answer from Ma'am Anabelle. I will move to the next question. This question is from Catherine. Okay, so I want to ask Mrs. Alicia. Inclusive means the whole overall, but it is just include people with disability or it is include other communities that need inclusive education program, like a remote marginal community in a village or other communities, or in a simple way, who are the target for inclusive education other than people with
Inclusive education ensure welfare of our students.
Recording in
Being
progress.
scared or being afraid. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Anabelle. The next question is from William Robert. Hi, I am Robert from UMK. Let me ask one thing about dyslexia. I think this is question from Dr. Trubus. It's likely for children to inherit the dyslexia from the parents after all, but how can we diagnose if one of the children were to have dyslexia at the very first time? Are we gonna take a look at their symptom? Okay, thank you. That's what Sir Trubus.
Okay, thank you for Robert from UMK. To make a diagnosis for dyslexic children, that is make more observation from the expert psychologists, yes, and you can ask from psychologists several symptoms that may be seen as a sign to children with dyslexia. That is, I think that is more observation for child that have a dyslexic children. I think that's Robin. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sir Trubus. Okay, there is another question from Maya from Universitas Muria Kudus. I have a question for Mrs. Alicia. How the characteristic of a welcoming and supportive classroom environment so that all students feel comfortable participating in inclusive education class activity? Thank you.
Hello, good day once again. What's the characteristic of supportive classroom environment? It always started. I do believe that, on a personal note, I do believe that it started from the faculty, from the teacher assigned in that classroom, because the teacher is the one that is expected to manage so that it may provide a conducive environment for our students. And once the students feel that they are welcome, once the students feel that the teachers are after with their welfare, it's actually a feeling that can be cascaded from one over the other inside the classroom. The moment that the students feel that kind of feeling of welcoming and being comfortable to the teacher assigned in that particular classroom, that it may go forward to each and the last, to the first and the last student inside the classroom. And with that kind of feeling, then we can be able to point out that support, the kind of support is already available in that classroom because it was started from that very unconditional connection between the student and the teacher as well. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Alicia. And the last answer from Ma'am Alicia was also the closing of our discussion session. Okay, I think we come to the end of our seminar today. I would like to conclude. So from the several explanation from the speaker, we can conclude that there are many benefits of inclusive and education. For example, inclusive education allows all students equal access to the general education curriculum, regardless of their ability or disabilities. This approach helps all students reach their full potential by providing the necessary support they need to be success. Okay. Thank you very much for all of the plenary and participants. It's such a great honor for us to have you here. Next, I will leave it to the host, to the master of ceremony, Mrs. Prapti. Hello back. Hello, welcome back, Mrs. Prapti. Mrs. Prapti.
Suara saya terdengar. Hello.
Okay. We can hear you now, but can you open your video camera? Actually, she is right beside me, but we have to communication via Zoom.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ruby.
Wait for a moment. Okay, I think that was the end of our seminar. And for me, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Psikologi Bravo.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih, Bu Siti.
Okay. We have arrived at the eve of the event. Thank you so much to our plenary speaker and all audience who have attended the event from start to finish. Hopefully, the knowledge that we get today from the speakers can be useful, open up our horizon, and can be applied in everyday life. And then I will convey information related to the agenda of the second day. For operator, okay. Second day agenda. I'm sorry, we have a problem. For presenters, for break room 1, moderator is Mr. Ridwan Budi Pramono, S.Psi M.A. Kemudian, and next presentasi. The presentation Princess is Mrs. Tinon Citraning Harisuci. Presenter Amalia Rahmadani, Anindita Prastia Pawitra, and Amalia Rahmadani, Wardah Al-Qoidah, and Minyatul Rahma. Teks MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.